Hail, hail, the Celts are here, and what the hell do we care now, guys? We've just won the Old Firm, we've just won the Glasgow Derby by 4 goals to 0, and we are through to the semi-finals of the League Cup, in a game that I think we expected there to be a lot more changes. We expected a lot more squad management to show itself in this League Cup match than what we actually seen. But make no mistake about it, off the back of the game we had last week, Celtic have set themselves up fantastically to start competing again in the Europa League, as well as all the domestic stuff that we've got in the league and the cups and everything else between now and the next international window. In the video today, we'll break down everything we've seen and what we learned from the Partick Thistle game, and what we might be looking at as a precursor from this game into the game away to Belgrade, away to Serbia in the midweek. At any point in the video, if you do laugh, you learn, you like something or whatever, please do like and subscribe to the channel for more content like this, and get into the comment section and let me know what your big takeaways are from the game, guys that stood up or otherwise. And yeah, let's just get stuck straight into this one, because like I mentioned, coming into this game we expected there to be some squad management, we expected there to be some rotation in the team at this weekend. I think one of the most predictable ones of that was going to be a Sinisalo, and outside of that there was nothing else really predictable about this team. Even Yang coming in to start this one, I don't think anyone had it. And for the majority of the team outside of that, we can have a conversation and an argument, I suppose, about Iheanacho's role and, you know, how his career will progress or whatever. But this is the first choice team as it stands right now. Who knows if Ralston will be ready for Serbia this midweek, in which case Donovan might be, you know, really chucked into the deep end again. And by the way, Donovan I thought was exceptional in this game, did very, very well, had a lovely shot from the edge of the box on his left foot, and had a few moments in this match where he did show that his left foot is more than passable. You know, it's actually pretty effective for him to be coming inside and playing the ball across the face of goal or through the middle of the pitch. So I thought Donovan did fantastic in this game, and I think if he can keep, you know, one or two more performances to the level that he's already, you know, the bar he's set himself, I think he'll be looking at very quickly becoming the number 2 right back at Celtic at the moment. He is showing a lot more attacking versatility and just kind of, you know, in-game IQ. Not saying that Ralston doesn't give us this, but, you know, there's an extra kind of vigour, there's an extra kind of level of tenacity with what Donovan's given us here on this side of the pitch. And I thought, again, another kind of quiet hero of the game. But the way this match went, particularly in the first half, you know, for the first 30 minutes, it was quite tense, because although Partick Thistle were keeping it tight and narrow for the most part, between either Fitzpatrick, Chalmers and Litsosa, they were very quick to try and turn the ball over and try and get us involved in a 1v1, whether it be with Tony Watt directly or anyone that could be running away in maybe a 2-man or a 3-man counter-attack. And before we actually broke the deadlock, the first goal in this match could have really went either way. And the first goal for me is a huge, and I think it's not really a revelationary thing for me to say, you know, but it always has such a large bearing on the outcome of matches. And if Partick did score the first goal in this, when, you know, they never really had chances per se, like shots, you can really go back and highlight for this example, or for this kind of train of thought. But if they did, it becomes a much more different afternoon. They can defend a bit more resolutely, we're then a bit more sensitive on the counter-attack, etc. But I thought defensively we did very well, despite Vickers having one or two moments of borderline calamity that it felt like in this one. Scales did great. We had Tierney play the 90 minutes as a whole. But like I mentioned, you know, we started this on the front foot and we were very attacking. And a large part of that, we did get McGregor actually venturing into the final third. He got himself into the box on a few occasions, which is great. And it wasn't really easy to spot this until later on when the substitutions came on, but we got a lot more actual rotation in and between the midfield. Now, the way that our midfield is structured, I am always crying out for whoever these two players are to be much closer to one another, so that whenever they're going around the pitch and getting on the ball, they have one another to play with. So for the most part of this game, we were focusing and we were doing a lot of things down on the left-hand side with Kieran Tierney and Tounakti especially. But Ben Negren was never going to be too far away from Hatate or from on this side of the pitch here. And it made it even harder for Partick Thistle to get out of any defensive situations that resulted in them shelling the ball a lot longer. And then we were able to kind of scoop the ball up. And even with their kind of rest defence, their counter press, it started on their halfway line. You know, they didn't really come into our half to press them, and it just helped us maintain a bit more dominance in the match. Whenever Negren was popping in into these areas of the pitch here alongside Donovan and Yang, again Hatate never really found himself too far away, and it just meant that we were much better equipped to keep the pressure on these different zones of the pitch wherever we were finding the ball. And equally, it just meant that whenever we did lose the ball, we had someone else to try and, you know, defend the situation, whether it be Hatate on this side or maybe even Negren on this side here, and it just gave us much better balance. The element of this that wasn't really apparent until some of the substitutions came was with McGregor, because McGregor was still at the base of this triangle, was still the man that was in and between the centre-backs for the most part. But like I mentioned already, there was moments in this game where we did actually see him venturing up into the box itself, and I kind of thought when this was happening earlier in the game that this is because it's Partick Thistle and you can kind of just be a bit freer and go forth and attack with a bit more intent and a bit more, you know, like, screw it, I'm just going to go for it. I had a wee shot from the edge of the box early in the first half as well. But when he was doing that, of course, we had the likes of Negren and Tounakti covering back in for him. And I've mentioned it a few times, I won't say it again, we'll talk about it when the subs came on. But this is a big evolution on where our midfield has been, because previously it has been all about splitting the team out. And normally we're at Celtic Park when we're seeing this, or, you know, we're playing Ibrox or Hampden or one of these European games where the pitch is bigger. You want to try and spread out the opposition as much as you can, as well as keeping our defensive solidarity, our defensive shape. And the big problem I have with this is I want the midfield to dictate the tempo. I want the midfield to help us be a lot more direct. And Sebastian Tounakti really does kind of force the issue, and he was really the man of the match and really the star of the show here in this one. He did a lot on the left-hand side by himself. If he did get 1v1 with his man, he was doing very well, like breaking past him, getting into the box, making some crosses and some shots from in and around this area. But from a lot of different positions, from a lot of different states of the game you could go back and look at here, quite often he had 2 or 3 guys around him, and I was thinking this guy's going to have to turn into prime Paddy Roberts if he's going to get around all of these guys. And he never really had a big mazy run where he took out 2 or 3 guys and made something happen. But 1v1, nobody was going to be stopping him. And even when there was 2 players kind of getting involved and making it extra hard for him to get out of the space, whether it be with Tierney in support or somebody like Tounakti, he made really good choices very often to keep the attack going. And I thought Tounakti had another fantastic game. And the only thing I would say about Tounakti at this point is, like, number one, when we scouted him, highlighted him, when we were signing, you know, all the kind of scouting stuff we were doing here on the channel, I did say quite clearly looked at the best of the bunch that we've plucked from obscurity, and it's great to see that that is actually the case, because I think there's no two ways about it. He's a better dribbler than Yang. He's got just as much quality in his crosses and shots, so far it would seem anyway, as we've seen from Louis Palma, and just overall, you know, physicality and suitability for the team in the league. He's light years ahead of where Marco Tilio was. But this was against Partick Thistle. That's just the one thing I want to keep at the front of everyone's mind. Yes, we played Kilmarnock last week and he looked great there as well, but again, there is some mitigating factors that do point towards this being a very good start rather than like a slow start that he could get better at. You know, he's performing at a very good level at the moment, and long may it continue. But let's just think about where he's at the moment and where further improvements could come, because he's definitely on the ball often enough where you want to see the amount of conversion that we've seen from him so far. But this is a symptom that we've seen of guys like Yang, Palma, whoever in the past, where it comes in bunches, and we're looking for that Jota, that Maeda, that even Leah Labada contribution in the team, where it's not in bunches. It's, you know, this guy is good enough. This guy, if we play him at home, away, in the cup, he plays 6 times a month, he plays once a month, whatever, he's going to deliver. He's going to give us what we expect of him, that bit of magic in his case, because that is what he offers to the team. And like I say, long may it continue, and I hope it all comes through. But it is early days. The fixture list, guys, for Celtic is one of the most grueling in European football, especially when you get into that Christmas period. On top of how difficult it is managing the amount of fixtures, the travel that we have domestically, it's the pressure, it's the expectation around being invincible, trebles, and keeping the fans happy, all that kind of stuff. It does build up, and at the moment he's still got that, you know, honeymoon period that he's enjoying, and I can't say enough. Long may it continue, and the sky's the limit for the kid as it stands right now. But just let's temper getting carried away with ourselves is kind of where I'm getting at with this. I did think Iheanacho was an absolute breath of fresh air. I think we should talk on the goals, because I find myself wanting to talk about Tounakti's goal and the build-up that we had with Iheanacho. But we opened the scoring first of all with some great play down the left-hand side. Eventually the ball comes back to Negren, who gets a lovely cross across the face of goal for Yang to just head it back in. And this is something we were chatting about on one of the live streams recently, regarding Yang, you know, where he fits into the squad, his quality, his level. It was great to see Yang get that goal, and throughout this channel, you know, covering Celtic and all the stuff that we do here, regular subscribers and viewers will know, like, Yang has left a lot of those goals on the table in his Celtic career to this point. Yang, by all rights, should have maybe another 5 or 6 goals in his Celtic locker, as well as a couple of assists. He's made great opportunities, he's got into great spaces, he's had great shots, and they've just, whether it be worldies from the goalkeeper, maybe just being a fraction offside, maybe a bogus foul that was never a foul, you know, things like this have happened, and that goal that he got there this weekend against Partick Thistle, I was really happy to see that for him, because he is a guy that has improved season on season at Celtic. He is a guy that quite simply never gives up, doesn't know when it's not his day, and keeps going all the way until the very end. And, you know, so I was quite happy to see his goal. I was happy to see the style of goal. And like I say, hopefully that's a bit of a reminder to Celtic fans out there that don't want Yang at the club or don't think he's good enough. I'm not saying he should be starting, but for the sort of squad we want to have, at the winger 4 or 5 slot, which is where Yang is at right now, brilliant. That's exactly to where we want him to be. I think the problem with Yang we've had earlier this season, just generally in Celtic, is he's not ready or good enough yet to be winger 1, winger 2, or even really winger 3 at this point. And that's fine. You know, if we can optimise him as being who he is, where he is in the squad, happy days. That's going to work out very well for us, I think. So, good goal for him. Hopefully that kind of gives him a wee bounce in his season so far, despite the pitfalls, the highs and the lows that he's went through already. We then get a great corner and a great header from Scaldini, Liam Scales. And again, similar to Yang, this has been a long time coming. Good delivery from the Gren. And I say Scales is always getting up there. It was an absolute world of a header, by the way. He has absolutely no right to score that with where he's actually met the ball. Like he's met the ball kind of out here. And to get that on target, like, must have been more like this, really. Yeah, because it was like this kind of guy. And it was right into the top. He's got no right to be scoring that from that position. It was absolute postage stamp. It was an absolute beast of a goal. Great header for the big man. And again, something we're always asking for on this channel is headed goals from corners. You know, we want to see the centre-backs get into the realm of scoring 5 or 6 goals a year, at least one of them. Could we get 10 goals a season from our centre-backs? That kind of vibe. So, again, really nice to see. Good bingo card exercise, you know, in that regard. We get Yang a goal, we get Scales a goal from a set piece, no less. And then, like, 30 seconds into the second half or whatever it was, we get the Sebastian Tounakti goal. Now, the thing with Sebastian Tounakti goal that I absolutely love is the Iheanacho pass for it. Tounakti runs into a corner. He's got 2 guys around him with already a defender on Iheanacho, or 2 defenders around Iheanacho, if you think about where they're actually placed in the thing. And Tounakti does great to not try and just run into a corner and just hit and hope, but he tries to get inside and have a striker to play with. And he does that just as the midfielder tries to drop into this pocket here. Iheanacho just rolls it into a nice little area of space where he can receive a pass nicely. You know, he's not got anyone obstructing the passing lane. The ball can get fizzed right into his feet. And the assist that Iheanacho plays, we have not had anyone at Celtic play a pass like that or be capable of that type of striker play since Edouard and Dembele, really, to be honest with you. Giakoumakis couldn't pass for love nor money, and if Kyogo Furuhashi got the ball in this position here, he's passing to fucking nobody. He is always taking a turn and trying to get a shot away or shooting first time. He's never passing anyone back in. And this type of utility from the striker is one of the things that Daizen Maeda offered when he first came into centre forward at the back end of last season. But as we know, and even as we've seen later in this game, Daizen's not got that deftness of technique. He's not got that quality of execution. Daizen doesn't have a great pass or a great cross or even really that much of a great shot in him. His technique is something that continuously baffles and frustrates me at times because he's got such a great awareness, great energy, so much other stuff. But anyway, the point is that assist is something that is so basic to football. Just a wall pass from the striker, blind over the shoulder into the space for the player that's played you the ball to get back on it so that they can score a goal. Kyogo, not always you. And don't get me wrong, Giakoumakis, even Ida, they have tried to have a little bit of this play with us, but they've never had an assist off anything like this, and generally their passing has not been good enough to even try this off a lot of the time. Iheanacho has had some really nice striker passes in his few appearances with Celtic so far, and that put such a huge smile on my face, because that sincerely, if you think about this team as it evolves on, we've got Tounakti, we've got Jota, we've got Daizen maybe even playing in the wide areas as well, never mind when Jota comes back. Having a striker like this that can play those types of wall passes, those give and goes, we've seen it with Tounakti today, but Daizen Maeda is desperate for service like that on the left wing. Honestly, guys, it could be a huge feature of our play. It could be one of these copy and paste goals that we now start to get a lot more of, and not just the byline cutbacks that we've been restricted to thus far, because we've not really had a striker that can lead the line in that way. And yeah, I don't think there's too much more to be said about the team that started this game. I thought Negren did well, I thought Hatate did well, and I think the best thing about both of them is they just got a lot closer together. But we then got our triple substitution on the 59th minute. Callum McGregor comes off for Paulo Bernardo, which is expected and good. We like to see that. Iheanacho for Dyson Maeda, which tells me now, and I think confirms some of the chat we've had on the channel recently, that Dyson and Iheanacho is the striking contingent. Johnny Kenny is probably striker 3, and Callum Osmond and Shin Yamada are nowhere to be seen. A chat for another day. And then hero of the day, Sebastian Tounakti, comes off for Balikwisha because Brendan Rodgers said post-match, Balikwisha is only a left winger. He is not going to be playing on the right. They wanted to see it. They wanted to try it. I did think coming into this game, maybe we would have liked to have seen and tried Tounakti on the right to see how that would have happened. But no, okay, fine. I don't mind Yang playing on the right. But we get Balikwisha onto the left. And I was really happy with the way the team was when Balikwisha came on, because he's coming on to play with Dyson, who you would think is, at least short term, immediate term, the first choice striker. Let's see what happens beyond January, is what I'm meaning when I say all that, of course. Hitate's still on the pitch, Negren's still on the pitch, and Tierney is still in support with him. And Balikwisha in this game looked a little bit nippier, looked a little bit more like he had a point to prove in this game. The goals were flying. By the time he comes onto the pitch, it's 3-0. You definitely feel that he wants to get involved in the act. He played a lovely ball through for Dyson Maeda at one stage in the game. Obviously, he wins the ball back off of the boy Logan here for eventually Luke McKeown's goal, which goes on to make it 4-0. And he did do well. He did look okay. But one thing that I did notice as we were watching this again is he is very similar to Ben Negren in this wide position, where he doesn't really want to be hugging that touchline the way that Tounakti does. He wants to come in and play. He wants to get involved in the build-up. And this is the same sort of positioning that we've seen from Negren whenever he's been out on the right-hand side. And Rodgers has not been as happy with that, which made me think that we might have got Sriracha into this game to get... And don't get me wrong, after Balikwisha came on, Tierney actually started to put a bit of a shift on and try and support him with a bit of an overlap. It doesn't really ever amount to much. Tierney goes on to clock up, obviously, at 90 minutes, which Rodgers did say was a huge psychological kind of W for him, so fine. Bit of a side point here. But Balikwisha is very much starting slowly at Celtic, and I think a part of this will be the fact that, number one, he has been playing in attacking midfield for Antwerp before coming into the side. But when I'm watching him, I just get the feeling that of this guy, I said the same thing about Nicholas Kuhn not too long ago, but it feels like he doesn't want to get injured. It feels like he doesn't want to get hurt. It does feel that way, that he's not directly like taking somebody on. And I know that sounds a bit weird because he had a lot of tenacity in his game. He won a few tackles. He turned the ball over. He had a really aggressive press in him. But whenever he was on the ball, he was more happy to try and feed the ball into the team and try and get play going, rather than himself take a man on and hit a shot from the edge of the box. He wouldn't mind taking a man on, getting into some space, and then could he switch it out to the right hand side? Could he find the striker? Could he play a midfielder? And a very different type of player to what we've seen from Tounakti in this one. And where and how he fits into the Celtic squad is still to be determined, I suppose, isn't it? We then get Hatate off for Engels about 10 minutes later, so we got a good 10 minutes of the first 11 there. And then a couple of minutes after Engels comes on, Negren comes off for Luke McKeown, who we mentioned earlier, goes on to get the final goal. After Balikwisha winning the ball, he's ran onto it, got 1-on-1 with the keeper and finished very, very well. And I was very surprised that this wasn't the midfield that started the game, to be quite honest with you. I thought Bernardo did really well, but this is now when... I could have maybe even went a step back before, because really when Bernardo came on is when you noticed the midfield rotations being a bit different, because there was a period in this game, obviously it was only 10 minutes, that they shared the pitch, Hatate, Negren and Bernardo. But after Bernardo had been on the pitch for a couple of minutes, he didn't get too many touches. By the time the ball's getting built out from the defence, we were much happier to keep playing forward like we were. And like we've mentioned before a bunch of times on the channel, because Bernardo doesn't have this centre of gravity effect that McGregor has, the ball can just go into Negren or into Hatate a little bit quicker, and we can just progress the ball up the pitch a bit more. But there was I'm going to say like a solid 5 minutes in this second half where Bernardo out and out just rotated with Hatate, and Hatate was the one that was picking the ball up from deep, and we've seen Bernardo getting a bit higher. We would then see Hatate getting a little bit higher as well. Negren would drop a bit back, and this is some of the movement that we've seen in the first half, but when it was Negren and Hatate and McGregor, it was just a bit less obvious. But when you see this Bernardo that's on, and Bernardo's the one that ended up in some periods of this game being the most advanced midfielder, and we're not talking about for long periods of the match, but just in sections, phases of play, it feels like the midfield has maybe had an evolution where if you want to have the three midfielders the way that we've had them, Hatate, Negren and McGregor, then you want to have real rotations where all three of them can mix it up a good bit. Because if McGregor's always going to be the deepest, then really what rotations can Hatate and Negren make? They can go up and down, they can maybe swap sides with one another, but not too much further and beyond that. You want them to be able to rotate so that they become harder to mark. You want them to kind of maybe try and pick on some openings and some gaps, some opportunities to play in some different patterns of play and have that freedom to take the opportunities that present themselves on the pitch. Knowing that, hey, if I go and roam, somebody's going to cover in for me, whether it be Hatate or Negren themselves. And when Bernardo came on, it was just a lot more, it was just a lot easier to see. But by the time we get the full change of midfield, Engels was, and again, like, I've been saying this for 2 or 3 weeks, but Engels is so close to breaking through. Engels is like 2 good games away. He's doing so well with so much, and he is just a little bit not quite in the right place at the right time, and he's just trying to force it a little bit too much. And quite sincerely also, he's just not really getting that many minutes. But I thought Engels, although didn't do much in this, was almost like a second striker in big periods of this match. And having someone of his physicality and his determination supporting the likes of Daizen Maeda, because again, another point I never really brought up earlier like I meant to, so apologies. But again, Daizen was very happy to drop in and have a little bit of give and go play in here. But there was moments in this game where Iheanacho dropped in so deep that it looked like we had like a bit of a midfield free. And that helped Tounakti start a lot wider and then drive inside later, because Iheanacho would come in deep and then very quickly like run up the pitch unmarked, and then defenders have got to like pick him up and stay with him and all that kind of thing. So again, with the striker movement and the midfield dynamic, I actually think we've maybe had a little bit of a style change. We've had a little bit of a tactical evolution on our hands. And we finished the game with this team here, right? Now, I don't know what to think coming out of this, because quite clearly Daizen Maeda is the first choice centre forward. It feels like at the moment Tounakti is going to be the first choice left winger. Yang's played 90 minutes. Does he start in Serbia? Do we start Forrest in Serbia because he didn't play at all when he's rested? Do we play Daizen on the right? Do we play Tounakti on the right? Do we start Iheanacho? Do we play Negren on the right and play Engels in midfield? I'm actually a little bit, I don't want to say confused, I don't think that's quite the word, but in the dark. I've got no idea what the manager's thinking now coming into this game, because like, if Daizen is the centre forward, fine, because Iheanacho, you can't probably expect him to start in Serbia. And between Balikwisha and Tounakti, and then I suppose you're going to say Tierney and Sriracha in that same vein, we've got like two full left-hand sides there that can play across the 90 minutes. You hope very effectively, but it's very lopsided, isn't it? The right-hand side feels a bit bare by comparison, I think, and feel, you know. So away to Serbia, you know, away to Red Star, I don't know if this will be as much of a point of contention, because Yang is certainly showing that in enough of these types of games, he can be effective, if nothing else. And we know Forrest has the experience to kind of carry us through. And you never know, we could even play in the Gren in that type of position, just knowing that he's going to be a lot more narrow. And when you've got someone like Tounakti who's very wide, maybe you can balance that off. Maybe that's something the manager might try out. Although I don't suspect he's going to be trying anything out. In the Europa League, I think it will be tried and tested only, which is why this is maybe unlikely. But I do find it weird. Obviously, Tierney has to get the 90 minutes for his psyche, for his milestones and all that kind of thing, I suppose. But I do find it weird that he played 90 minutes out of Yang if he is going to start in the midweek. So, a little slight one there. Tounakti does leave the game as man of the match, and I think it's very well deserved overall. I do think Donovan was a quiet hero in this game. Scales was quietly very effective as well. He even punched Tony Watt in the face, which was just like, whoa, what happened there? Rio and Negren and McGregor were all pass marks without being exceptional. Yang gets a goal. Iheanacho looked tidy. Daizen didn't do anything. So, yeah, it's a good man of the match for Tounakti. And I don't think really beyond what we've just said there was really anything else in the game to kind of discuss or go over. So yeah, good one for me. I think a lot of positives. Is there any negatives? I don't really, other than Carter Vickers' few nosebleed moments, I don't really think there was any negatives at all. Could have scored another couple of goals. We took lots of shots, which was nice. Onwards and upwards from here, guys. I hope you've enjoyed this one. On screen now some other stuff that we've made that YouTube thinks you might enjoy. If you've not been keeping up to date with the content recently, the videos on screen now have been very, very well received, and I hope you enjoy them as well. Don't forget to get into the comment section and let me know your thoughts and feelings on everything we've seen from Partick Thistle versus Celtic, the Old Firm, the Glasgow Derby. Enjoy the rest of your weekend, the rest of your week, depending on when you're watching this. Stay tuned to the channel. We'll be covering all the other stuff that's going on, Europa League and, you know, blah, blah, blah. All the stuff. You know what's going on. Hail, hail, Mon the Hoops.